All right, today I am excited to talk about the subject of professional brands with you. We're going to be going over the 4 steps, and this is episode 4 in the series. And I'm excited to talk to you guys about this today because I've helped musicians, small businesses, individuals. I've gone through an internal corporate rebrand. And so just understanding, what is a brand overall? A brand is the look and feel of your organization. It aligns with your culture, the values, the projections of your organization, and it's how you present yourself in the world. It's how not only how you talk about yourself, but how your customers talk about you, other people in the industry, how they see and acknowledge your organization, and it's how they think and see the services that you provide and the experience that you provide for the people that interact with you. So some of these core values are trust, commitment to others, respect, the quality that you provide. And I think the landscape nothing has changed since the advent of a business. Things haven't changed, but the magnitude and reach has definitely increased with social media. So, at the end of the day, all businesses should be providing the best product that they can, the best experience for their clients. And since the very first business of all time, that's what they've been trying to do. And then even today, you're trying to do that. But your image and your presentation has a greater reach to a bigger audience. So today we're going to be diving into with the great power comes great responsibility, Spider-Man quote, with having your brand in the public eye. So we're going to be going over values. That's the first part of the first step. Number 2 is presentation. 3 is operations. And then number 4 is future and outlook, which can also be considered your goals. All right, let's cue the intro.
Thank you for checking out the Media Marketing Podcast, a place where you can learn all things media and marketing related. Don't miss a beat in boosting your business and your brand. In each episode, you'll gain valuable insights, tools, and strategies to apply to your marketing efforts. And now your host, Brian Cargill.
Okay, we're going deep diving into each of these as much as we can. Obviously, each of these could be their own segment, but I like to give you a high-level look, just get the ideas flowing, and get you excited and in the right direction. And if you have any further questions, you can always reach out to me directly. But we're going to be going into the values, presentation, operations, and future outlook of your organization. So number 1, values. A lot of organizations, I think, make the assumption that they already know who they are and they already assume that their clients know who they are. But that's not always the case. It's not good to make that kind of assumption. So having a mission statement, having something that's rooted in your organization that you can reflect back on and say, this is how we help people do X, so then they can do Y. This is the pain that we're alleviating, or this is our vision, or our upholding certain standards. So for me personally, my mission is to help people share their message so they can leverage their expertise and create new opportunities. So it kind of in a nutshell encapsulates what I do and how I help others and, what's the end goal, what's the end result. Now, it's somewhat vague, and it's vague on purpose or even more broad because every situation is unique and every message is unique, and the opportunities that someone is trying to gain from enhancing their brand and enhancing their digital presence is different. So I looked up a list of words, so I think this is a great way to just get a better sense or really identify those core message and values. And I found, if I can pull it up here, okay, hold on. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so a core a list of words that you can associate with your brand and your organization and your overall identity. And some of those are integrity, being honest, being loyal to your customers, being loyal to your clients, being respectful to clients, to their own needs, to their privacy, as well as internally for your organization. Responsibility, bearing that load of trying to provide the best possible product, making sure you're sustainable, doing it ethically. Those are things that customers are looking for today. Compassion, authenticity, being transparent, courageous, being bold, moving into the unknown. Some organizations don't want to do that. So I think being at the forefront of change and being willing to adapt to the market, that can be a great value to incorporate. Generosity, so being willing to give back to give back to the community, give back to customers. Perseverance, willing to do whatever it takes to come up with the best product. Being kind, optimism, positive about the future, so that can be providing a positive outlook to the world. Being reliable, conscientious, disciplined. These are all just a handful of words. Then this is a list of 20, but you can go online, just type in positive traits, good character traits to have, and you might be thinking to yourself, well, those sound like traits that an individual would have. And in some regards, a business is like an individual. I think actually, technically, I'm not a lawyer, but they treat businesses like you would a person. They have there's a lifespan to a business. A business is born, a business dies, and so you treat it as such. It's its own entity. The next, so once you've kind of solidified how you want to be seen, what is your core values, what are the things that you want to associate with, then you think of the presentation. How are you going to showcase those core key aspects of your organization? Now, before I move into that next part, I do want to say it's best to not get carried away and just say, oh, we want all of those traits because they're all fantastic. I would get it down to your top 10, down to your top 5, maybe down to your top 3, and the more you can hone in and be selective of what traits you want to uphold, this will help with the presentation of your organization. So when it comes to presentation, we think of things like the logo. You think of the colors, the fonts, iconography that go along with it, imagery, which we talked about in another episode, videos, the phrasing that you use for wording blog posts or the copy on your website or in advertisements. These are all considerations that when everything aligns with the presentation, that your logo's on par with the colors and the branding, your audience doesn't get confused. It sends people there. It makes you look more professional, and it makes people, on a subconscious level want to work with you because they say, "Oh, that looks familiar," and people buy things that are familiar, things that they can trust. Okay, so the first part, you're probably asking yourself, well, where do I get a logo? How do I make one? How do I go about that? Well, you can hire somebody. There's Indeed, Fiverr, Upwork. These are great places to find someone. You could find someone in person, or you can create one yourself, which is just a temporary placeholder, which I think for a lot of people starting out, this is where they're at. And some people are from a different school, but for me, something is better than nothing, and you can always change things down the road. There is a threshold that once you are up and going and you're starting to get a little bit of brand recognition, people see your organization, or you're just more affluent in your community. Having these things be polished and done by a professional really does go a long way, and you save yourself a lot of heartache doing this early on rather than being up and going for a decade and trying to do it retroactively. Because this logo, this imagery is going to be, you're going to pay some money for some signage, you're going to pay for advertisements, you're going to pay for all these things. So it's just kind of mitigating the crisis down the road. But just, general rule of thumb, if you do have to create it yourself, your name or initials of the organization in some kind of shape around it actually can get you pretty far, whether that's like a circle or a square or a diamond. That's something that you can play around with. Not the most professional advice, but I would say it's the most fitting for people that are just bootstrapping it. The next thing is your vision and your style. This is where really having an outside organization that can help you hone in and identify a style, because they've worked with lots of other organizations, lots of other companies and brands, and they'll be able to tell you what looks good and what you're not, making sure that you're not copying something else that's out there, making sure that what you're doing is unique. Because I think, especially if you're in a specific industry, it's really easy to fall into the similar traps that, these are the iconic things. So first things that come to mind, technology, you think of computers or motherboards, you think of just wires and connections, maybe cell phone towers. So you think of some of the things that are pretty common, and you're not the first one to think of that. Someone else in the industry might already be doing that. So look to see what else is out there and make sure that you're doing something that's unique. And there's a fine line between being so unique or being so abstract. But at the end of the day, that's where a test group comes in, shopping whatever it is that you're considering leaning towards by a group of people and getting feedback and moving on accordingly. The next aspect is, colors and fonts. Typically, you want to have 2 fonts. You want to have one that's a serif and a sans serif. And, one of those, that's just, a fancy way of saying one font that has clean edges, so there's no rounding, and then another font that does have some rounding. The one with the rounding is usually the one that you want to use for the copy in whatever project that you're doing. And then the colors. A lot of people, I think, overlook the colors and the fonts, but they play a key role in it. There's a psychology behind colors. I know for in the food industry, McDonald's has hit the colors right on the head. For some reason, yellow and red make people hungry. So that's something to take into consideration psychologically, what colors align with evoking an emotion or a feeling that you want out of your audience or your potential customers. Another side thing is iconography. That can be a great way to break up copy on a website or in a blog post, or can just be little whimsical things that you can add to an advertisement or you can place on your website to continue to give people that experience that they are getting information or they are interacting with your brand, and those little icons can go a long way. So you want to make sure those are in the same wheelhouse. Okay, so that does it for the presentation. So the first one being values, next presentation, then we're going to be going into operations. So how do you go about fueling this machine of your professional brand once you've established what are your core beliefs, how you're going to how you're going to showcase yourself. Now the operations is actually doing the work, laying the foundation. I'm a big proponent of content marketing, so it's building up your blog posts, your podcast, your video hub, certain kinds of imagery, infographics. These are all things that live within that operations, your repository, your database of information. So I think right off the bat, just this is something that I know some people struggle with, but being organized can go a very long way, especially as you're developing a lot of these different assets. So having the file structures in place. For me personally, I have a file that's named just personal brand that sits within all my other folders. But within personal brand, I break it out by banner, business card, images, logo, articles and newsletters, your signature, that's part of your brand, and social media, and then videos. And I'll go back over those again. So for the banner, that is what's going to live at the top of, that could be on your website. That can be a banner. It can live on your Facebook. It'll be the top part of Twitter, top part on your LinkedIn or on your YouTube channel. And having some consistency between those can be helpful for people to continue to get a sense of that they're interacting with you and continue to establish that trust. The next one is business cards. So your business card should also be in alignment, have your logo on there somewhere, and also have the look and feel that is reflective of your website, that's reflective of your social channels. Next, having a folder with images is key, because this is where you keep your headshot, your professional-looking headshot, or profile photo. And then you also can have your action shots. So if you're a speaker up on stage, if you're a CEO or business leader, you should definitely have some photos of you presenting in front of a group. Just giving the audience or the customers a sense of who you are and what your interactions look like. The next one, having a personal logo. This one, we talked about this a little earlier, but having something that looks and feels similar to you. If you're within an organization, you might just hide behind the logo of the company that you work for. But if you're a small entrepreneur or individual, if you're an author, having a logo, some people just use their signature, can go a long way. It helps people to identify with something, and if you're not as comfortable just using your face for everything, having that logo can establish you. It just makes you look a little bit more unique compared to the rest of the people in the marketplace. Next is articles and newsletters. This can also be considered blog posts. Just having those in a database, having those in a repository can be huge, because then you can see what you've done. You can build upon work for the future. And if you have evergreen content, stuff that you can continue to use year after year, that's where this lives. And then you can just reach into that database and pull from it. I think we'll go into a little bit further depth of writing blog posts and articles in a future podcast. We already talked about signature. The next part is social media. Having a specific folder for social media can be really nice, because in this folder you can store the social media logos. You can have already preset dimensions. I like to use Illustrator. Some people use InDesign, Photoshop. You can use Canva to design things. That's an online software. I think for someone that's just starting out and isn't as familiar with design, Canva is a great place to start. And then you want to just make sure that all of these different folders, you build out Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, they all have dimensions that you want to make sure that you live within. For example, Instagram, the dimensions for an Instagram post is 1080 by 1080. So if you're doing a video, cropping it to 1080. I know you can post it without doing the 1080 by 1080, but I don't know. I like to have everything look clean within the same wheelhouse, so I make sure that it's all set to the right dimensions. The next folder is your videos. So video bio is definitely a key thing to have. I'm going to go deeper into video bios later on, but that's your calling card. That's something that can live in your email signature. That's something that people can click on and get a sense of who you are in 40 seconds, 1 minute or less. And I think it's a great way to be able to connect with new people. It's a great way to connect with people that have never met you, and is a friendly way for someone to say, okay, emotionally I can see who they are, I get to know who they are in a nutshell, and then you're able to share at the end of it what your interests are. And so you show that you're not just a robot, but you actually have hobbies and things that you like to do outside of the norm. And then also within here you could have explainer videos, and then a folder that I didn't mention but that could also live in here is a podcast. So if you produce something individually, or an audio cast, or any audio form that you have, you can even break those video aspects and break those into audio. So then, last but not least, the final step but really not the final because you'll continuously be adapting and adding new metrics, but that is outlook and future, which can be substituted with goals as well.